everyone. Today we are going to learn a topic named as diversity in plants. I am sure we all have heard the name Royal Botanical Garden. It is the largest botanical garden which is situated in Kew, England. According to this place, they have reported 391,000 species of vascular plants. Out of that, about 3,69,000 species are angiosperms. Now, we all would agree to the fact that this is a very large number. So, to make our life simple and understand plants better, we are going to categorize plants into 5 different categories in this lecture. The 5 different categories are habit, habitat, nutrition, reproduction and lifespan. The first one is habit. The moment we see a plant, we say, oh, it is a tiny little plant. It is a herb. Oh, this plant has grown quite big. It should be a shrub. Or the plant is so tall, huge. It is a tree. Oh, this plant has a weak stem. It is a climber. Similarly, the next category is habitat, a category where we try to understand where the plant is grown. First one, for example, is Pistia. It is a hydrophyte. It prefers aquatic environment. Contradictory to it, this is Opuntia. This is a xeric plant. It prefers arid environment, desert environment, less water condition. The next pick is of Vanda. Vanda is an epiphyte. It grows on another tree. For example, this Vanda could be growing on a coconut tree. Does this mean it is parasitic to coconut? Absolutely not. Epiphytes are not parasites. Epiphytes grow on another plant just for aerial support. They draw nourishment and water from the air. Next category is nutrition. The moment we see the word nutrition and in plants, the word which comes to my mind is photosynthesis. Plants cook their own food through photosynthesis. We have heard this several times from our teachers in earlier grades. But we have also understood another fact of plants, that certain plants could be parasitic, symbiotic or saprophytic. Reproduction, either asexual or sexual. Lifespan seems to be very interesting. A grass lives for few weeks. Rice plant lives for few months. A mango tree lives for approximately 200-250 years. A banyan tree lives for about 700 years. Look at the variety of lifespan. On this basis also we categorize the plants. Now I was storing this last slide or the last pic. This is a very interesting plant by name Wolffia. This is the smallest known angiosperm. Now we will be seeing the pic of Wolffia in some time just to understand how small they are. Before that, we are categorizing the entire habit, as we have just now discussed that herbs are the smallest plant. Certain examples for herbs are mint, grass, tulsi, ginger and so on. Shrubs on the other hand are a little bit bigger plants. So, rose, hibiscus, lemon and so on. Trees, huge trees, pine tree, neem tree, say mango tree and so on. Climbers, weak stem, they can be subcategorized. Something like creepers, twiners, or also known as lianas, and so on. Creepers, something like pumpkin, which has larger fruit and they prefer to grow on the ground. Twiners or the climbers, something like pothos. What is pothos? Money plant, a very commonly grown plant in houses. Lianas, bougainvillea, a plant which has weak stem but brownish stem. It cannot be as strong as a shrub or a tree, but not as weak as a climber. They go around each other to make a little stronger aspect of the stem. Now in this pic, we see a man's finger, two fingers holding several number of wolffias, smallest plants we were just discussing. Look at the number of plants, so many. These plants, wolffia has a very important fact to it. These are very small. These are having a symbiotic relationship with Anabaena. Anabaena is a cyanobacteria known for fixing nitrogen in the soil. So generally what they do, they mix this Anabaena wolffia in the paddy fields to increase the nitrogen content. Another example what is specified here is tribulus. Tribulus is another herb which produces a secondary metabolite. What kind of secondary metabolite? It helps in strengthening. So we generally extract the substance from tribulus and we get it as a marketed form as capsules and tablets. So moving on, we see the next form, shrubs. So here the pic is of a plant named Nerium. Nerium is another example of xerophytic plant. Trees, you could see here mango tree, Mangifera indica. It is a tall tree with very strong stem. The below pic is of Pisum sativum, peas. You can see the plant has weak stem. Moving on to the next category, it is habitat. Habitat here are of different types: hydrophytes, xerophytes, mesophytes, mangroves and epiphytes. Hydrophytes or aquatic plants. One of the examples we just now learnt was pistia. I would like to bring about another example, what we call it as water hyacinth. Water hyacinth has a nice fact associated to it. Water hyacinth, also known as Ecornia crassipes, is a plant which is brought by Britishers to India. It is not a native of India. This particular plant has beautiful purple flowers. Britishers liked it. When they came to India, they brought it to India. They made Calcutta, now Kolkata, as a capital in India. What they did, they started growing these plants in this region. As we all know, Kolkata comes in the Gangetic belt. It is blessed with lot of inland waters and this plant seems to be aquatic. They started growing very fast. This plant has vegetative propagation and sexual propagations. So this started covering all the water bodies, killing the water animals and the water body itself. Hence, they started naming it as terror of Bengal. Anyways, moving on, we move to the next category, xerophytes. Xerophyte example we have seen Opuntia. One of the common plant in xerophytes is aloe vera, a medicinal plant but surely a xerophytic plant. These plants grow in very less water. in desert condition. They have long roots. Their stem is very succulent, green and photosynthetic, whereas leaves have been converted into spines to reduce transpiration. Mesophytes are a optimizing point between hydrophytes and xerophytes. They require optimum amount of moisture, water and so on. When you look around, whatever plants you see are mostly mesophytic. Name anything and that's there. Mango, tulsi and so on. Mangroves. These plants grow in salt water. One of the example is Rhizophora. Rhizophora, Avicennia, all these plants grow generally in estuaries where there is a lot of salt water. A delta where the river and the sea is meeting, there is a lot of salt condition in the water and these plants can't absorb the dissolved oxygen. So, they have a phototropic root. I repeat, they also have geotropic root for support system, but along with that they have phototropic root that grows against the soil. These roots have small pores called as lenticels which absorb the atmospheric oxygen. Hence, these mangroves roots are called as respiratory roots. Or pneumatophores. Next category we have already discussed, epiphytes, vanda, orchid. They are aerial plants. So, see as the diversity. Some plants prefer water, some no water, some optimum water and some other they prefer aerial condition and yes, not to forget salt water also. So, you can see the number of types of habitat they prefer. Now, we are moving on to the first category, hydrophytes. They require a lot of water in and around them. So, abundance of water is the first word you need to understand. In this category, we have 3 of them. Now, if you are imagining this to be as a water body, there could be 3 conditions. There could be a plant right at the base of the lake, and this is a lake, okay, or a water body. At the base of the lake, there could be a plant which is floating at the top, but their roots are till the base, or there could be a third category of plant where it is floating and the root is at the top. Now, the first category, completely submerged, example is hydrilla. Second category is, you can see the leaf at the top floating, but the root or the stem has reached till the ground. We call it as free floating leaf but rooted plant. Example, Nelambo. What is Nelambo? Lotus. The third category is free floating, both leaf and root. Example, Pistia. So, I hope you have understood the 3 categories separately and properly. Once more I repeat, hydrilla is a submerged plant, whereas Nelambo is free floating leaf but submerged root. Root is completely submerged, and in Pistia everything is free floating, leaf, root and so on. So, the picture in the right you see is Pistia. Now, the next category is xerophytic. Here we call them as desert plants as they prefer arid conditions, less water condition. Why? Because we know that desert gets very less rainfall, temperature is very high and dry condition. Intensity of light is also very high. So, they get very less water. In that less water, due to high temperature and high light, that water also is dried up in the upper layer of the soil. To adapt to this condition, the plant has long roots, very long root they have. Their leaf is converted into spine and stem takes care as of now for photosynthesis. All this is together put as a single word, phylloclade. Phylloclade are those plants which has succulent stem, photosynthetic, but their leaves are spines and they have long roots so that they can take up as much as water from below. So you can see here this leaf is converted into spine to minimize the transpiration, to conserve water and to use the stored water in sparingly. Some of the examples we have already come across Opuntia. I have also told you about aloe and another example asparagus. So these are certain examples of xerophytes. Next condition we are seeing in habitat is mesophytes. Mesophytes, as I told, is an optimal plant. They get sufficient amount of moisture in the soil, normal temperature they have, normal temperature along with normal intensity of light, meaning to tell they don't get too much water, they don't get too little water. They don't have too high temperature, neither too little temperature. Everything is optimal. So they show normal growth. Hibiscus, rose, mango, tulsi. Keep naming as many you want. These all come under the category of mesophytes. Next category is mangroves. These prefer saltwater condition. As you can see here, these are the roots which is going above the level of soil so that they can absorb the oxygen present in air. As you can see, they grow in either brackish waters or the kind of condition we call it as halophytes. Halo, salt, salt loving plants. In saline soil they grow. Rhizophora, Avicennia are certain examples. I repeat the point, the type of roots they have is both geotropic, which helps in holding an anchorage to the ground, but along with that they also have phototropic roots, which is also called as pneumatophores. I have told you pneumatophores is otherwise called as respiratory roots. Pneumatophores, force means pore, pneumatic, respiratory, pores, pneumatophores. So here are the respiratory pores which is present, which is called as lenticels. Very important for us to know. Next category is epiphytes. Epiphytes are those plants which grow on another plant. As I told, epi means above and phytes means plant. A plant growing on another plant. These are generally herbs because they have to grow on another plant, so they cannot be very bulky. Generally grown in tropical rainforest regions. They are tree top habitat, or should I otherwise tell aerial habitat. To be exposed to sunlight, very important, they need to produce their own nutritions, so they are exposed to sunlight. The example comes under Orchidaceae family, orchids. Some belong to Aroidae family, Ariaceae. Mostly these are flowering plants. So Vanda is the example. I would like to again repeat, these are not parasites. They grow on other plants, but they are not parasites. So, the next category, we have finished with habit and habitat. We are moving on to the next category as nutrition. I think autotrophs is something we understand very easily. Photosynthesis. Photo, light, and synthesizing food with the help of light is known as photosynthesis. Next three categories, parasites, saprophytes, symbionts, are all under heterotrophs. Parasitic plant, the first plant, parasitic, Cuscuta, Rafflesia, Orobanche, Viscum, so many examples. Saprophytes, you have Monotrappas and so on. Symbionts, they fuse and stay together with another plant. For example, Mycorrhiza. We will see it in more details in the coming slide. So, the first one, as I told, autotrophs synthesize food materials by their own through the process called photosynthesis. But when you are coming to the parasites, we have various types. We have root parasites such as Rafflesia, Orobanche. We have stem parasite like Loranthus and Cuscuta. I think we understand the word parasite very easily. A plant or an animal or any organism for that matter cannot produce its own food. It completely lives on another organism and extract the nourishment from another organism is known as parasite. And in this case, plants have certain parts of their body which behave in a parasitic mode. Here is the first pick, Rafflesia. This is the largest flower. This is the largest flower. If you actually look at or weigh the flower, it weighs approximately about 10 kilograms. Huge, big flower. Now, you might be imagining in your mind that this big flower, how can it be pollinated? These are very rare flowers and they are generally pollinated with the help of elephants. When the elephants walk on them, they trample the flower, the elephant foot gets attracted or attached with the pollen grains, and when they come across another flower and then these pollen grains stick onto the stigma there. Huge big flowers. Orobanche is the next example of parasitic plants. Now when I was saying about the stem parasitic plants, Loranthus, can you see this region? This is Loranthus growing on another tree, completely absorbing its nourishment. If you look at this, Loranthus is so greenish, but on the other hand, the stem is starting to become weaker. Cuscuta, these all yellow line-like structures, can you see here? The spring tendril-like structure, that is the plant Cuscuta. It is on the green plant behind. So, this is how they draw. Moving on, we are seeing the saprophytic and symbiotic types. Saprophyte, the type of saprophytic example is Monotrappa. What do you mean by saprophyte? Can I give an example of saprophyte quickly here? Fungus. Fungi is a saprophyte. What does it do? It decomposes the dead organic matter. If a plant do the same, we call it as a plant saprophyte. Here, the Monotrappa plant decomposes the organic matter to produce its own food. So, in other words, I can say it feeds on dead and decomposing substance. The last category under nutrition is symbionts. Now symbionts are of various types. First one, mycorrhiza, root nodules of legume crops and lichens. Now if you see here, this region, this is mycorrhiza. Myco, the word is mycota or the fungi. Rhiza is the word for root. Whose root? Big tree's root. In this case it is pine root. They combine and help in absorption of phosphorus. What do they absorb? Phosphorus. Next comes is root nodules. Root nodules, in this case, what is it combining with? The legume crops, Fabaceae family, or in simple words if I say bean family, beans. So along with this, what is combining? Rhizobium. Rhizobium combines with the bean root, forms the nodules. Why? They absorb nitrogen. So what does mycorrhiza absorb? Phosphorus. What does rhizobium in legumes absorb? Nitrogen. Next category, lichens. We all have heard about lichens as pollution indicator. Especially if sulfur content in the atmosphere increases, it will it will not grow. It is pollution indicator. Can you see here? Yes. This is lichens, wherein you have combination of algae, which is a plant part, or also we call it as phycobiont, with a mycota part. What is mycota? Fungi. So you have two parts, phycobiont and mycobiont. Phycobiont is algae, mycobiont is fungi. So the next mode of classification is reproduction. There are basically two types, asexual and sexual. Asexual type in plants is also known as vegetative propagation. So we will be combining these two parts and understanding. Vegetative reproduction or vegetative mode of propagation is done with somatic parts of the plant. What is somatic part? Vegetative part. What are the types of vegetative parts do we see in a plant? We can see a root, a stem, a leaf and a bud. We can't consider flower here because flower becomes a sexual part. So when these root, stem, leaf and bud give rise to a new plant, we call it as vegetative propagation. We all would have heard about the plant called as bryophyllum. Phylum means leaf. From the leaf, the plant is growing. Similarly, if you see in terms of stem, potato, if you leave potato at your home for some time, you will see small plants growing from that. Similarly, in case of onions and so on. Asexual mode of reproduction, when we are saying, we are very clear that there should be no fusion of gametes. And in case of sexual reproduction, 100% male gamete must fuse with the female gamete. This is very, very important. Fusion. That leads to sexual reproduction. Now, moving on to the next part or explaining each of them. Some examples are specified. As I will give you more number of examples, along with this we will see part by part. First part, as I told, is root, which can lead to vegetative propagation. We have all heard or seen the plant dahlia. If we take a root tuber and grow we see a new plant. Similarly, in stem, if we see in case of potato or ginger, we take the parts. Say for example, if I am taking this as a considering this as a potato here, there will be certain eye regions, we call them as eye. If I cut this portion of eye and grow it on soil, here is my eye. In due course of time, we can see that root starts to grow from this eye. Similarly, in case of ginger, which is generally like this, if I cut this section and grow on soil, from here gradually the leaf starts growing along with roots at the bottom. Very important for us to understand that these all parts are vegetative and they don't take part in any kind of sexual reproduction. Next part is of leaf. I gave you an example of bryophyllum. If I consider this to be as a bryophyllum leaf, small little leaf portions grow and with the root here. So, every single portion can be cut and separated out on the ground and they grow into new plant. So, like this we can take various vegetative part of a plant to grow into new plants. Here are some examples. Gingiber or ginger propagates with the help of rhizome. Then we have corm or colocasia, we call it as arvi in common words. Yam, they propagate through stem and they are called as corm. Amorphophallus, zameen-kand, elephant foot we call it as, they also propagate through corm. So, see the pics of these students. Here are the parts what we can see as these are the rhizome region or the ginger region from which the new plant have grown. This is colocasia. You can see a new plant growing from there. This is Amorphophallus or zameen-kand. From here also plant grows. Moving on to asexual mode of reproduction, as I have already stated that here male and female gamete must not fuse. So, how does the reproduction happen then? It happens with the help of spores. Spores could be through mitosis spores or through meiosis spores. When the spore is produced with the help of mitosis, we call it as mitospores. When the spores are formed due to cell division such as meiosis, we call it as meiospores. Now, in case of mitospores, we have two examples, akineids and aplanospore. Now, look at this region. This is a pic of nostoc. Nostoc is a filamentous algae. What do you mean by filamentous? One cell to the next cell to the next cell. It is like a filament. But certain cells here will produce or become reproductive in nature. These cells are called as akinete cells. Certain cells, on the other hand, can be as an aplanospore. What is A? No. Plano. What does this mean? No flagella. They do not or non-motile. So, if you are looking at these akineids, you would closely see there is no flagella present in and around it. So, we can see these mitospores to be as akineids, aplanospores. On the other hand, meiosis leads to certain spore formation. This is seen in higher plants. If you are looking at the classification of plant kingdom, you have first algae coming in, then bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and finally angiosperms. Algae, being the most primitive, exhibits mitospores. A little more advanced forms as bryophytes, pteridophytes, and gymnosperms exhibit meiospores. Sexual reproduction is the last form of reproductive classification. Very important because this is the best form of reproduction. There are mainly three different types in this: isogamous, anisogamous, and oogamous. Iso means same, aniso not same. Oo, the word is for egg. So we will be looking about this in the next slide. The slide is made in such a way that it exhibits also evolution. During evolution, the first form type of gametes were isogamous. Next came anisogamy and finally came oogamy. Isogamy is also known as homogamy. Homo means same, iso means same, gametes are gamy. If you look at one and the other gamete, can you differentiate which is a male gamete and female gamete? I can't. I can't tell which is gamete 1 and gamete 2 also. So here both gametes look absolutely same with size, shape and flagella. But on the other hand, anisogamy, also known as heterogamy, you can see this gamete a little small when compared to this, which is a bigger one. But now tell me whether this big one is a male or a female. There is no specification. I can't. This big one may be a male or female, the other one is the other one, vice versa of it. But when we saw in evolution that female gametes has a bigger role to play because the entire gestation has to be done with female gamete, it makes sense that female gamete requires a bigger rest and lot of nourishment. So you can see in the next pic that the female gamete is larger with lots of cytoplasm, in other words nourishment, nutrition, and it does lesser work of locomotion. Whereas the male gamete here is having flagella, it locomotes to the female gamete and then it fuses, because the only work what the female gamete does is it moves to female gamete for fertilization. Thereon female gamete takes part. Since here female gamete or the egg is given more importance, we call such a type of fusion as oogamy. And oogamy is seen in all angiosperms. How do you understand that? Here the male gamete is the pollen grain which pollinates and reaches to the female gamete, which is the ovule, and pollinates it and fertilizes. The last type of category is lifespan. As I already told, in life cycle, if there is birth, there is death. But when is this death going to come? How long in general a species survive? Is it for days, weeks, months or years? If we have certain forms living just for weeks to months, we call it as ephemerals. But if it is at least an year, it is annual. It is a year but 2 years it is surviving, it is biennial. And year after year after year, if it is surviving, we call it as perennial. So, one by one we see them. The first pic here is of Tridax. You might have commonly seen in the roadsides. This Tridax plant lives just for few weeks. Some time back, we saw tribulus as an example under herbs. I told it is highly medicinal, it gives us strength. This plant also lives for few weeks. These all are termed under the category ephemerals. When it comes to month to year, we categorize as rice and wheat, few months or an year. You should understand that these ephemerals and annuals complete their complete life cycle within this stage. So in few days it will be juvenile stage, then it grows to becomes a reproductive stage, and finally it dies into a senescent stage. Then comes the examples of biennials and perennials. First I start with biennials, carrot, radish. We all would have seen carrots grow within 2-3 months. It's easy. Then why do I call it biennial? Carrots grow within 2-3 months span. The upper part leaves to start flowering, it takes 2 years. So flower to seed formation is much more tedious job than just forming carrots. This is why you would have seen the seeds are sold in much higher rate than actually carrot. So I repeat again, formation of carrot or radish takes few months, but the complete life cycle of the plant completes with the formation of flower and seed, that takes 2 years. The last peck you can see here is Mangifera indica, a mango tree, a perennial example, and our favorite mango season is going on now. So this tree takes long time to grow. It takes about 6-7 years, 8 years to start fruiting for the first time. But once it started fruiting, it starts gives fruit every year, year after year. So here are these are certain types of lifespan that we have come across. Summarizing today's topics, we have come across a variety of diversity in plants, types and so on. Second, we saw habit, we saw herb, shrubs and trees. Third, we saw habitat. They are various places it grows, like hydrophyte, xerophyte, epiphyte, halophyte and so on. Fourth point or the third category we learnt was nutrition. Autotrophs and heterotrophs. Under heterotrophs, parasites, symbionts and we also saw saprophytes. Fifth point or the fourth category was reproduction. And finally, the last category we saw was lifespan. So students, I hope you have understood the chapter very well, but for reinforcing the points, we need to do certain homework. So we will try and understand it better or come up with more doubts which will be clarified to you all. We will be solving some questions. They are MCQ questions, 11 of them. I read it out to you all. The first question, which of the following is the ephemeral? Mangifera, Nerium, Tridax, Hibiscus. Question 2. Smallest angiospermic plant is Sequoia, Mangifera, Tridax, Wolffia. Tallest gymnospermic tree is Wolffia, Mangifera, Eucalyptus, Sequoia. Next question. Tallest angiospermic plant is Tridax, Nerium, Eucalyptus, Pinus. Fifth question. Epiphytes among the following: 1. Vanda, 2 Pisum, 3 Tribulus, 4 Wolffiam. Sixth question. Free floating aquatic plant among the following are Pistia, Eucalyptus, Selaginella, Nelimbo. Seventh question. Fusion of extremely differentiated gamete is called 1. Isogamy, 2. Anisogamy, 3. Oogamy, 4. Apogamy. Eighth question. The mode of nutrition in monotrapa is parasitic, symbiotic, autotrophic, saprophytic. Ninth. Which of the following exhibits symbiosis? 1. Mycorrhiza, 2. Lichens, 3. Root nodules, 4. All of them. 10th question. Which of the following is a biennial? Carrot, radish, rice. Option 4 is both 1 and 2. 11th question. How many of the following are mangroves? Rhizophora, Avicennia, the spelling is AV. Third, carrot, radish, tribulus. Options are 2, 3, 4 and 5. All the best students. Please do your homework and the doubts will be clarified shortly. Thank you.